Welcome to our channel, Bravo News. For sale, the McBee Dynasty's empire crumbles under crushing debt. The gates swing open. The Missouri sun was merciless that morning, casting a blinding glare on the black and gold for sale sign that had just been hammered into the McBee family's massive iron front gate. It stood awkwardly against the backdrop of the sprawling estate, a 15,000-square-foot symbol of rural opulence nestled in the heart of Gallatin. For the past 2 years, that mansion had been the epicenter of the McBee Dynasty, the show, the scandals, the social media spectacle. But now, it was just another asset on the chopping block. The crew from Midwest Lux Realty hadn't even finished snapping drone footage before news had leaked. Within minutes, fans of the McBee Dynasty flooded TikTok and Reddit, comparing Zillow screenshots to stills from the reality show. "I knew it," one user typed in all caps. The pool alone screams bad investments. Inside, the mood wasn't just somber, it was apocalyptic. Stephen McBee Sr., the patriarch who once made his millions in agribusiness and livestock biotech, stood in the kitchen nursing a glass of ice bourbon at 10 a.m., staring at his phone. He wasn't even reading the headlines anymore. What was the point? He already knew what they said. The numbers don't lie. The whispers had started weeks earlier. Quiet mentions of liens, unpaid vendor invoices, and a particularly nasty judgment from a failed cattle genetics venture in Texas. But the public hadn't caught on until documents surfaced showing the McBee estate had been listed for $6.4 million. Fans were stunned. Wasn't the dynasty thriving? Hadn't Stephen Jr. just posted a flex video driving a brand new Rivian truck? Behind the scenes, things had spiraled fast. The family's debt had ballooned to over $11 million in under 2 years. Between overspending on the show's production, failed investments, and legal fees tied to Steve Sr.'s federal investigations, yes, investigations, plural, the empire was rotting from the inside out. But perhaps the most haunting detail of all, the bank had already begun foreclosure proceedings 3 weeks before the home was even listed. How did we let it get this bad? It was Stephen Jr. who had demanded a family meeting. "Everyone needs to be here," he texted in the group chat titled McBee Mafia. No excuses. One by one, the family gathered in the grand living room. Steve Sr., his jaw clenched. Jesse, fresh off a night out in Kansas City and still wearing sunglasses indoors. Cole, the quiet brother, arms crossed like a Walt, and behind them, the ever-present hum of camera crews, still filming for what may be the final season. Stephen Jr. stood before them, holding a manila folder thick with spreadsheets, bank statements, and debt breakdowns. "We're not just broke," he said, voice sharp. "We're bleeding out." "Don't be dramatic," Jesse scoffed. "I'm not." He flipped the folder open and turned it around. "If we don't sell this house now, we lose everything. The ranch, the cattle, even the show." Steve Sr. spoke up, his voice gruff. "We've been through worse." "No, we haven't," Stephen Jr. fired back. "And maybe if you hadn't taken out that second mortgage for a podcast studio no one listens to?" "Watch your mouth." "I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. You lied to us. You said we were building a legacy. This," he gestured around, "this is a financial graveyard." Silence settled. Even the crew filming knew better than to speak. The House of Illusions. To outsiders, the McBee estate was a palace. Marble floors, gold-plated fixtures, a garage bigger than most homes. The infamous media room where cast confessionals were filmed had soundproofed velvet walls and a bar that cost more than most weddings. But behind the scenes, it was a money pit. Black mold had crept into the guest wing after a pipe burst. The indoor pool heater had failed months ago and never been fixed. And worst of all, the estate's property taxes hadn't been paid in over a year. As part of the listing package, the realtors required a staging day. Staff scrambled to hide signs of damage. Out went the stained rugs, in came fake orchids and luxury candles. They even paid an influencer couple from St. Louis to pretend they were touring the home for their TikTok audience. The illusion had to be perfect, because if it wasn't, no one was buying. Rumors, rage, and Reddit. Within days of the listing, online speculation exploded. One Reddit post titled "McBee Mansion equals McBee Bankrupt" went viral, citing anonymous insiders who claimed the show would be canceled due to financial insolvency. TikTok sleuth discovered the home had dropped from 6.4 million to 5.8 million within a week, an ominous sign. Fans were split. Some blamed Steve Sr. for mismanagement, others pointed fingers at the sons for being more interested in clout than cattle. "I knew Jesse was broke when he did that sponsored ad for beef jerky no one's ever heard of," one commenter joked. But amidst the chaos, a bombshell dropped. Steven Jr. and Kala had quietly moved out. The couple, once the show's golden pair, had fled the mansion weeks ago, reportedly staying in a modest rental while planning a life off the grid. This place is cursed. On a cold July morning, potential buyers arrived for a private showing. Among them, an out-of-town developer looking to turn the estate into a wellness retreat. His wife, a luxury architect, surveyed the land with professional detachment. "I've seen castles with fewer ego prints," she whispered. The tour went badly. The Wi-Fi didn't work, the gate malfunctioned, and the developer's car got stuck in a muddy back trail once used for show pony riding scenes. "You'd have to pay me to live here," he muttered as they drove off. Back inside, Steve Sr. watched from the upstairs balcony. It was the first time he admitted the truth, even if only to himself. The dynasty wasn't dying, it was already dead. The Outfire. In a last-ditch effort, Steven Jr. arranged a McBee estate auction. Everything had to go. Art, furniture, ranch equipment, even reality show memorabilia. Hundreds gathered in person and online. Fans snatched up autographed hats and custom saddles. A single wine glass from Season 1's infamous Barn Brawl episode sold for $1,300. But even with the hype, the money raised barely scratched the surface. At the end of the day, the estate itself hadn't sold. One buyer offered $4.2 million, nearly $2 million below asking. Desperate, Steve Sr. considered it. Jesse exploded. "We're not giving this house away to some stranger." Steven Jr. countered, "What do you want? Another lien? Another lawsuit? This house is drowning us." The family was divided again. Goodbye, Gallatin. The deal went through. The estate was sold to a silent buyer, rumored to be a crypto billionaire planning to rebrand it as a Midwest metaverse retreat. The final price? $4.6 million. Not enough to clear the debt, but enough to halt foreclosure temporarily. On their last day, the McBee family stood outside, watching as moving trucks carted off the final reminders of their reign. "I'll miss this place," Cole said quietly. Steven Jr. turned to his father. "So what now?" Steve Sr. stared at the empty gravel driveway. "Now we find out what's left when the cameras stop rolling." A dynasty redefined. 6 months later, the McBee Dynasty has taken on a new form. Steven Jr. launched a YouTube series chronicling the rebuild, starting with a rented farmhouse and one tractor. Jesse has moved to Nashville, trying to launch a music career that's 80% Instagram, 20% actual music. Steve Sr. vanished from public life. Rumors of a private settlement with federal regulators swirl, but nothing confirmed. The show? Still airing reruns, but Bravo hasn't greenlit a new season. And the estate? It now has a meditation yurt. Once hailed as the Heartland's answer to succession, the McBee Dynasty was never about land or legacy. It was about image. And in the end, no matter how many acres you own, no dynasty survives a lie told too long. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel for regular updates.